and thanks for teaching me urban mapping.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here and so honored that I was invited to this podcast and
You're being humble.
I'm so encouraged by you and my other students who have really taken these skills out into their professional lives and then
That's
are
a
then sharing them
compliment.
out. So
Oh, hello everyone. Hope you're doing good. This is Manpreet Hanspal. I'm an architect and urban designer, and you are tuning into the fourth episode of our podcast series, Architects and Urban Designers Imagination to Reality. And today we have with us a very humble person, Professor Tali Cantor. She's an urban designer whose contribution in the urban design, landscape architecture, and land use planning has been significant for so many years. Pursued her master's in city and region planning. She's the director of planning at Union Square Partnership located in New York, which is a non-profit organization working towards ensuring Union Square District's continued growth. Professor, welcome to the podcast and thank you so much for doing this with us.
thank you so much, Manpreet, for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
No, it's my pleasure to have you. You have squeezed out time from your busy schedule on a Friday, and you are doing this with us. So, for our audio listeners, we are having a conversation with Professor Tali. She's in New York right now. It's 9:30 a.m. for her on a Friday, and yeah, we are doing this. So, how are you doing, Professor?
I'm doing well. As you mentioned, it's Friday, it's New York City, it is summer, and it is such a hot day out today. So we're just trying to, enjoy the summer and get through it. And we have a lot of great work to do. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm feeling happy about it. So, we would like our listeners to know your journey, how you got into city planning, and what was your initial thoughts about it. We can start from your academics to actually your professional experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I am from, the Boston area in Massachusetts, which is a city, but it's a smaller city. And I always dreamed of living in New York. I saw New York as sort of like the most amazing
Totally justified.
city. I think you feel the same way as a student in New York. And so I really was excited to pursue a degree in New York, and I ended up at New York University and wanted to only be there because of the way it's so ingrained within the city and to be able to learn from the built environment. And I actually started off really interested in art history and architecture. And so my background is, really looking at the design of buildings and art through time. And I wanted to pursue a degree in architecture originally. And then as I started learning more and more about architecture, I really started to become and lean more into, well, you have this beautiful building, but what about the spaces in between the buildings? What about the way the building touches the ground and the way that the building facade actually can impact the people at ground level? So I started to really get excited about the classes where I got to go out into the city and sit in a public space and observe people and the way that people engage with their surroundings, which led me towards urban design. And so urban design has a little bit of the ingredients of architecture, a little bit of the ingredients of planning and public policy, but it's really focused on the physical aspects of creating place. And so what I mentioned was really interesting is, what is the experience of a human at ground level? So the environment between spaces, the public spaces, the safety of these spaces as people are walking around, sitting, shopping, going to work, doing all the things they need to do to get around, access and mobility, how people are able to actually get to a place in a safe and comfortable and efficient way. And also the public health impacts and what we as designers can do to really think about how the built environment, architecture, but also the design of the public space really has a link to health. And part of that is public safety, part of that is mental health, and part of that is just having the environment improve our health rather than detract from it. So I started off with, after I went to graduate school in Philadelphia, and I came back to New York because I missed it so much. And I worked for Grimshaw Architects, and it was an amazing experience.
They're huge.
They have a global perspective with offices in London and Australia. And so that was really a great experience. But what I became most excited about is returning to this neighborhood scale. And so working for Union Square Partnership, which is a neighborhood organization, we're on the ground in a very, very specific block by block scale, has been just a great way to bring my interests together and really focus on that.
I think that's amazing, and I think totally justified. When you are in New York, you like the city, how it works, not just the beauty of it. That is obviously justified. It's a beautiful place to be in. But I think how people work, the professionalism, the culture, and how communities and stakeholders are taking a consideration about their surroundings, that is commendable, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have mentioned about mobility. I think that's a great point, and health effects of urban design. So my next question is that you have been in so many roles, right? Grimshaw Architects and neighborhood scale. What has been your most exciting role so far? You have been into teaching us at our college also. There are so many things you have been daunting at, and I would like to know what's the most exciting thing for you, which you thought that, okay, this is something that has excited me, at the same time made me feel that I need to, buck up for this.
Interesting. Yes. I think your, question about mobility and sort of the way that all of these issues come together has been really true in my role at Union Square, just because this is a place, for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's in Manhattan. It's one of the great public spaces that's connected by Broadway and 14th Street. And it is has a park right at the center of the neighborhood. And so many different transit lines go through. So it's a major transit hub. It has a new busway that was implemented in 2019. That's a priority bus line on 14th Street. And so you have this amazing transportation hub. You have so many people. You have this great public space, but you have infrastructure, because it's New York City, that has been in place for hundreds of years. In some cases, when it comes to the park itself, the renovations of the park have been decades ago. And so what's been really interesting and challenging is reconciling that we have this amazing place that we need to preserve, and it's important to all these people in the city, but the infrastructure is so crumbling. So how do we prioritize our investments in creating that place that's important for the city, important for the local people who live there? So what's been really exciting for me is being in this neighborhood organization where we get to talk to community, but we also get to talk to our city leaders and the agency leaders within the city and the state in some cases, to be able to really advocate for those corridors, the park infrastructure, and say these are really important things for the people who live here, but also on a regional scale, the people who are commuting in from other places.
Exactly. I think when we talk about urban spaces and like parks and plazas and everything, I think they have to be the non-negotiables of city planning. They have to be here, and we cannot doubt and have a negotiation that whether we want them or not, because if we are wanting infrastructure, they're very much a part of infrastructure. And somehow it is sad to see that people who are actually responsible for planning on a city scale or regional scale, district, whatever is the potential, they somehow make this as a secondary option. They don't prioritize it. And that is sad to see at most of the places. But I'm really happy nowadays, professionals like you are diving into it and taking responsibility that, okay, we want this and we have to advocate for it. And there are so many discussions on the LinkedIn as well, great organizations are now coming in the forefront, and they are contributing their way into it, and they're making sure that okay, whatever we are planning or designing in a city, be it architecture, urban planning, or landscape, but they have to be one team, and they have to be in sync with each other, so that we are producing curating, I would say, the places which are actually going to be sustainable and serving our future in the most productive manner. And that is really nice to see. Also, I think this summer has really stirred so many people and authorities when they have seen global warming giving major hints, and now we can see like the visual results of it, and is somehow impacting our health, mental health, and then the productivity of our work culture also. Because if we're not being able to maneuver around in the city, and we are not feeling safe in the summers, be it health wise or walking, pedestrians, and everything, I think it's going to hinder so many services on a city scale.
Absolutely. I mean, I think to your point just about the prioritizing the open space and the green aspects of our city, it's just really, it's reassuring, I guess, to see that, to your point, so many advocacy groups are really stepping up to make some noise about the importance of this. And the sad thing is that when it comes to budgets, the parks and open spaces are very quick to be cut from the budget lines. And I think that people recognizing the importance of these spaces and really making having their voices heard to say this is critical.
Yeah, I know. So for people who are in planning, they must be knowing about ArcGIS. But for people who are corely architects or are not from the industry, I would like to say this is a very important software, which can be a very, vital tool for you when you are planning, producing maps for your research, or any design you're working on a city scale or any scale that you choose to be. So Professor, I would like to know that as ArcGIS is a very vital in the urban and regional design world, and we would like to know your opinions and its vast potential.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we met each other during course at teaching how mapping and data is really important for architects and designers when it comes to making a case for their work, but also visualizing the impacts of planning and some of the issues that are there. I think that, ArcGIS, what the wonderful thing is that there are data sets that you can use that are free, that are publicly available, to be able to map conditions, whether it comes to road networks or topography or water systems, or even just landmarks within an area. And in some cases that data is free and it's amazing, and in some cases it's not available. And I think that it's so important for communities to have access to that, whether it involves creating your own data, using the various tools that are out there to support ArcGIS. So, GPS and some of these cartography tools that allow you to actually, or drone even, drones have been an amazing advancement to be able to create mapping tools that then planners and architects can really take advantage and use those. And from there, I mean, it's not just about mapping what is the existing, it's about the analysis that comes with it. Exactly. So ArcGIS allows you to run a lot of really great through their analyst programs, and to really create the stories that you're trying to communicate about the place. Where do you have assets? Where do you not have assets? I mean, that's really important. It's not just what you have, but it's finding the areas that have those gaps in connectivity or in resources. So I am 100% advocate for ArcGIS and any mapping tool really that gives you the QGIS is one that supports mapping. So I would love to see more architecture firms making use of that tool as well, and not just in the planning realm.
There are very few. If I say so, they do not put their mind into creating mapping. because they really depend on what's already been there in the blueprints. And I think you need to go through it, you need to do your research because it keeps changing. I remember, so she has been our professor when I was doing my master's in New York, and she was solely the person who taught me mapping. Mapping is actually producing maps related to the data you are working on. So we used to work on NYC, New York City, and we did some amazing mapping about the hotspots, about the climate, and then libraries, green spaces, and then waterfront, because we were redesigning waterfront. It was Professor Tom's project, and we were working on that. So I remember ArcGIS being a very important tool for me, at least in I use it even today if I have to do some research, produce some data. Whenever I'm switching from my architect's hat to my urban designer hat, I always go back to ArcGIS for producing the relevant blueprints that are required. But it's really exciting to see how New York has been able to manage all that open data, and actually public having access to it is actually a great point. Coming on to the next question, I'm excited for this. So we know that, okay, you are director of planning for Union Square Partnership. It is in Manhattan. I will definitely pick all the pictures and the videos in this podcast for our viewers on YouTube, that how beautiful the project is and how people are actually envisioning it. Communities are coming forward and contributing, and you have been a very active member of that particular community. So I would like to know your experiences working with them for so many years. I think it's been more than 4 years, I guess. And what are the challenges that you have come across with the community so far?
Yeah, thank you for the shout out to Union Square Partnership's vision plan. We, when I joined the organization a little over 4 years ago, the planning was already in the works. USP worked with Marvel Architects and started around 2018, really, to come up with what the future could look like for the Union Square area. This was a time when the L train that connects Manhattan and Brooklyn was being, there was a threat of a shutdown, and there was questions about how people would get around. And so really the organization went out to come up with a plan, because there wasn't a plan in place for what infrastructure, mobility, access could look like. So Marvel worked with the organization and basically created a community engagement plan around what do people like about this area, what do people want to see, and so it was amazing. They engaged with over 1,000 community members through tabling in public spaces, doing
That's impressive.
surveys, and really coming out to places where they could capture people's opinions. And so they came up with this vision, which you can see. Manpreet, you can share the website. USQ Next is what it's called now. And it basically envisions taking the benefits of the park, which is at the core of the neighborhood, and extending that out into the Union Square district. And so, what does that mean? It's really about thinking through creating an environment that's green, it's creating an environment that's accessible, and has that kind of street life and vibrancy that trickles out to support the businesses and the residential community. So as the plan evolved over the years, and in its current form, what we're really advocating for is a few different key points. So one is, we mentioned, the park has been, it's a critical piece of the neighborhood, but the infrastructure is really, it doesn't have that feeling of a modern park that, you go to modern parks that have been designed within the 21st century, and there's really amazing visibility through the park. There's amazing greenery, amenities for the public to use. So really thinking through how to make Union Square Park a modern park while
I guess
taking.
Bryant Park is one of the examples of how we can have different engagements for people coming over.
Yes, different activities for people, but really taking, there's a historic tree canopy that exists in the park. There's things that we know are so important to the history of the park and the environment. And so looking at how we can preserve those things, but really bringing a modern feeling and a modern experience through lighting, through pathways, through amenities. And so that's a key part of it. And another is the accessibility part. So I mentioned the busway that runs along 14th Street, which is at the southern end of the park. And so thinking through how to make that into a boulevard that exists in the style that you would see in European cities, where they really think through bus networks or trolley networks that, not subways, but other systems that are at surface level that can be really efficient. So creating that modern boulevard on 14th Street that connects the Hudson River and the East River and all the different neighborhoods in between. And I think that, part of that is really thinking about the infrastructure in a more critical way, as I mentioned. So Union Square Park sits above the train station. And so it's the fourth busiest train station in New York City. And so the fact that you have a park built above a major train station has a lot of challenges when it comes to making renovations to plumbing in the park, to the roots of the tree health and how you're going to be excavating and making these safe improvements. So there are a lot of challenges that we're facing. Your question about community, I think that there's been a lot of excitement about what this is and how this could benefit the area. I think there's a lot of questions too about, what will this look like for accessibility in terms of car access? If we're creating more of a pedestrian-friendly environment, how can people get dropped off in taxis or Ubers? How can we make sure that the elevator system within the subway is working, because it's currently not ADA accessible, which is, so surprising considering how busy it is. And then I also think part of it is a lot of those issues of climate have come up. So Union Square has these really large plazas that are hardscape. And so thinking about, we want more greenery, but the challenge of actually planting in these areas that are above a subway, because you can't easily create
the roots and everything
when you have a subway below. And the other issue is the vents from the subway actually the steam harms the trees. So it's solutions that are planters, above ground green elements that create that canopy, create that surface level greenery. That's something that the community has been really advocating for.
Okay, Central Park has been there for ages now, but it's huge. Like, you start and you cannot, really take one round in a single day. It's so huge. You'll get tired by, spending 1 hour of walking into it. But I think Bryant Park is a very good example if you want to take in inspiration. It's, right into the middle of the city. And it used to be my favorite one when I used to, have my classes. Wrapping up my classes in the evening, and sometimes I would pop into Bryant Park, sit for a cup of coffee, have my pizza, and there are movie nights on Friday, and then so many people come there. In winters, they have their skating grounds, and they have different activities for community engagement, and they have shadow concept also. And it's really nice to see people coming there in huge numbers and spending time. And you have streets all around the Bryant Park, but the moment you step into the park, you almost feel cut off from the chaos of the city, because they have these big trees serving as the boundary of the Bryant Park. And I love, even today, if I Google Bryant Park, I fell in love every time I see that. It's my favorite. I would like to come back for that.
I love hearing you describe it. It's
Yeah,
one of the things that's so special about it. And I think Union Square has a lot of those ingredients is the
yeah,
different types of activities that are,
yeah.
some of them are passive, some of them are curated, but it kind of gives
Hmm.
you the option to just sit in one of the, movable tables and chairs.
Yeah,
Or you can play games, or you can grab a
yeah,
sandwich, or, watch a movie or some of the other programs that they have. Union Square, right now, it's really exciting. We have the first ever night market taking place on the South Plaza. And
oh.
that's been a really interesting way that we're looking at how, markets provide that way to activate the plazas
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
provide something for small business. And everybody loves food. So
yeah,
just
of
all
course.
the different activities at Bryant Park, they're masters of creating
Yeah.
those amazing programs.
I think that's going to act as a catalyst for you to, actually engage numbers. So that's a really good thing. And for me personally, I love the mural activities that happen in Union Square, where they paint the roads, and it's nothing less than a festival happening. And you see the pictures coming when you have the newsletter, and I get the emails from the Union Square whenever they have any new murals coming over, and it's so exciting to see, like, people from the age group of like 7 years to even 60 years, they come there and they celebrate it. It's like coming over for New Year's Eve, and they have murals, decorations, and their lanes being dedicated to some message, social message, or even some fun activities. Sometimes they have this very cute murals for children, where they paint cartoons and then animations and stuff. Sometimes they go for some green message, and that is really, really inspiring to see. A very new concept. I was not aware of any such concept before coming to Manhattan for my studies. And when I saw that, I got so inspired that, okay, this is something you can consider. And someone has really sit and put his or her mind into it, that, okay, this has to be an activity. And that is really appreciable.
Yeah, thank you. The mural project is my favorite project that we do every
Yeah.
year, in 4 years now. It started off as a result of the busway that I mentioned being created, and
Hmm.
the city basically carved out these pedestrian spaces alongside the busway to reduce the travel lanes and
Yeah.
create more public space. And they create these in this temporary gravel. And
Hmm.
so one thing that you see all over New York is how we can use that ground space as a canvas.
Yeah.
So when we started this out, it was really, our first year, and I just want to give a shout out to the amazing artists that we work with year after year. I mean, the first year we worked with Gerald Luz and Work, who are renowned street artists. They have work
Yeah.
all over the world, and it was really about using this canvas to create a place for a message that related to social justice, to have a space that could be reflecting the activity that happens in terms of protest on the South Plaza. So we didn't
Hmm.
feel like it was a moment to just put flowers or
Yeah.
abstract design. We felt it was important that the artwork reflect the context. And so that started off this annual project that we do, and it's a 7,500 square foot space across two sides of the street. And it's we put out a call for artists every year. And so year two, we worked with Jiyoung Kim, who's an artist based in Brooklyn, and he really took the protests that he had been involved with that were responding to anti-Asian hate that was happening in New York
Yeah.
City. It resonated with him on a personal level, and he created a piece of a koi pond, basically, on the ground that was reflecting some, Buddhist motifs that were about the resilience of people
I
in New York
remember
City.
that one.
And that was, really an amazing
Yeah.
a motif, an amazing artwork. And then Vanessa Alvarez, the following year, she's a Spanish artist. She actually had volunteered with us in year 2, and she learned so much about how the project works. And she came back with this amazing design and really this expertise that she got from being on the ground working with us to see how a mural might take place. So hers was, a message about climate and the importance of connecting with nature. And then this past year, we finished our mural in May, and we worked with Talisa Almonte Studios, who's a Queens-based artist, and she created this amazing, more abstract, very colorful, joyful artwork called Flowing Together. That's about the movement of people through Union Square as a major transit hub that come together for this swirling moment that reflects the plazas as a gathering place for protest, for cultural celebrations. And so it's been really amazing to see how, we have this call for artists, to see how the artist's creativity responds to this idea. And to your point, we have community members come out to help paint with us. And that's really fun. We have some of the business community come out, some of the cultural institutions, and then we have students in the area, and they help us paint. And we have people just walking by who, say,
I know.
can I just like put a little paint down because I want to be able to walk by and say that I
have a contribution.
Beautiful back to the neighborhood. So that's just been an amazing project. And we hope to keep it going, keep building it, expanding it, and having it be a place for artists to have greater visibility. We work with New York City-based artists, and so to be able to give them a venue in New York, in Union Square, which has much foot traffic, has really been amazing to see what it has done to their careers as artists, and specifically in the asphalt art media, as opposed to wall murals. There's a really niche kind of work that you see a lot of mural artists who have done a lot of amazing wall murals, but translating it to the street is a whole different process.
Exactly.
So
I can see the excitement on your face. When you talk about it, your face lights up so much. So that's when you know that, okay, this person is so emotionally involved in the process also. That you are investing your time and effort and everything into that project. And I think that's amazing. And, for people who don't know where this Union Square partnership is happening, it's a Union Square Plaza on the 14th Street in New York, which you already mentioned. But I would like to add this is the busiest plaza in New York, because there's so many markets and shopping hubs around. People go there for, there are so many eateries also. Eateries, shopping, marketplaces, and it's all surrounded by a very, active and hustle bustle. So in the center of that, having a very quiet and a very serene place where you're trying to create more of an urban space, which is I would say the urban forest. And that's really commendable, because when you enter onto that plaza, you know that, okay, this is something unique. And when you cross the roads, and especially when they're painted, when already the mural has been taken place, when you cross, you are standing and you're gazing at the end of the street, you see such beautiful pictures, and you are so proud of the fact that, okay, you are able to witness it personally. And that's amazing. Okay, Professor, I would like to know for any freshly graduate who's enrolling in the community beautification projects in NYC, or is looking for opportunities where they can really be a part of any non-profit organization, what are your clues and what is your suggestion for them?
Yeah, I think I'm so happy that there's graduates out there who are really interested in this type of work. It's always really amazing to think through how to volunteer with your local organizations. That's the best way to really get involved and find out more about what's going on. I mentioned our mural project. That's a volunteer event that we have, and that's a great way for students to really come out and make a tangible difference. There's also organizations that you can get involved with to do park cleanup events, planting, other beautification, but also we're always looking for support for students who have that eye, who can help us do some studies in the field and volunteer with us to do pedestrian counting or public space observations that really help inform our data collection for the work that we do. So it's all about using your skills and volunteering with your local neighborhoods. And that really helps expand your networks too, because once you get involved in a community, you meet amazing people, and you can really starts off this momentum of meeting other people who are involved in other amazing projects, and it's not just about volunteering. That could lead to work too. So
it's actually building connections also over time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And lastly, I would like to know that what is your approach about planning while working for an urban forest or any urban scape, or your perspective about how cities are doing their research? We can club these both questions.
Sure. I do think that it's having a strong understanding of what exists and where your needs are. So using data analysis mapping tools to really understand the strengths of your community, what are the assets, and take inventory of that. That's a really important part of the process. It's the land use, it's the tree network, it's the mobility, the connectivity, but also it's the businesses, the institutions, the schools, the people who are actually ingrained in the community, and how they could be, a part of that network and that, the existing strengths of a particular area. So leaning into those and enhancing them, preserving what works really well, and then finding the gaps that, we talked a little bit about, like where there are the holes in the connectivity, where are the needs. And so using mapping projects, community engagement, really finding that, and once you unlock that really inspires a design idea and how you can make improvements. But it's, you need those resources, you need the time, you need to be in the field. Actually, there's one thing is using maps where you're kind of zoomed out, and one thing is walking around a place. And those things need to go hand in hand, because the data is not always the most accurate. And really, such an important part is understanding the experience. So that I encourage for sure.
I think site surveying is a very important factor, and you cannot neglect that, because when you're producing data, it's important to know your site as well. Because I remember when I used to work for NSF Research Coordination Network, so we used to be this student working group who used to be so active in attending all the webinars produced by some amazing professionals, team of architects and stakeholders and engineers who are actually talking about new technologies coming into existence, how we can actually intervene into the practices, and we can, provide a fresh perspective of how architecture and urban design can be done. We need not to, follow the same track. We can create our own niche. And in that research team, I realized the importance of how you can really, dig deep when you are standing on the site, because your site personally. The troubles you have accessing it when you go there in the first place, when you're moving around, how you're feeling about it, what are your first, nuances when you reach, how people are approaching the current design, and how they're absorbing everything. So I think do not be reliable on just online data. It's important to visit and then absorb the information and the feel and the vibe. Even when I was working there as an architect, I went for a site visit. It was in New Canaan, I enjoyed my site visit because New Canaan is a beautiful city to be in, and they were having this multi-family project, and we were working on multi-family homes and villas and everything, and there was some existing building, and they had to be replaced by those urban projects. I would say I cannot describe how beautifully the city was done. It was like those old charm cities, in New York, and where, outside of New York, I would say, sorry, because you don't see much of that nowadays. I know Orange County has that old vintage feel. I have been to Orange County once, and the houses are, placed at some space from each other, and there is like those uphills and downhill moments you are having when you're walking around, and beautiful treescapes, you're having shade whenever you're walking, small cafes to give that feel and vibe. And then but I also feel somehow walkability is a prime factor of those small towns, because people walk, they love to walk there. Even New York, people love walking around.
So, I mean, those are fantastic points. One of the really important parts of urban design, for sure, is creating that walkability.
How an individual can also make a huge difference if they set their vision for it. And that's what I wanted to squeeze out in this podcast. And I think we have just, hit the right track. I would say it was really, really fun to catch up with you after so much time. And thanks for teaching me urban mapping.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so, honored that, I was invited to this podcast, and
You're being humble.
I'm so encouraged by you and, my other students who have really taken these skills out into their professional lives and then are then sharing them out. So it's really exciting for me as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for doing this, and have a good day. The podcast is going to be available on the YouTube and the Spotify as well. I'm going to link her LinkedIn in the description box on the YouTube channel, and you can reach out to her in case you are a professional looking for clues, and you can listen to this on the Spotify also. And thank you so much. Have a good day.
So you two have a good night.
Yeah, it's almost 8:15, so it's a good night for me. So have a good Friday. Thank you so much, Professor.
Bye.